Welcome to Scorched Earth and the general reading for the sign of Aquarius, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for Taurus season, the month of May, whatever your timing paradigm is. I mean, I'm really trying to focus these readings on the right now, so whenever you see this, this is what we're dealing with. So anyway, I hope you're well. I'm using the 777 Tarot for you today, which is my Bulgarian deck. And yeah, before we begin, if the reading resonates with you and you would like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end via links in the description box below. If you're looking for just the extended for this reading, then you're looking for the link that takes you to Selfie. However, if you are interested in exploring more of the extended content that I do, and that's not just for each of the signs every month, but there's a weekly energy reading as well, and the opportunity to participate in the Deccan Walk, which is proving to be actually transformational, I think. It's a bit of a collaborative project, but people are, there's something really special happening there with that. You could do so, and if you join at the higher tier, you can come participate in the live classes that we run over there and get access to the database of all the recordings of classes that we've done already. So if that's of interest to you, then please do come over to the Order of the Phoenix, my private platform, and and come join us over there. Be delighted to see you. With all of that out of the way, let's flip the camera around and talk about what we're actually going to do here today. So the very first question, and the most important question that we can ask ourselves in 2026 is, where are we right now? Not what are we afraid of? What can we see coming down the pike? None of those things. Like, where are we actually right now? So we'll pull 3 cards for that. We'll then pull 3 cards for, and this is kind of inspired by the Deccan Walk actually. This Taurus period of time that we're in seems very much focused around not only the resources that we have, but the identification of potential problems. And inspired by the 5 of Pentacles, the issue is not what is monumentally fucked in my life right now, but like, if everything stayed the same, if nothing changed, where would I be in 5 years' time? And is that acceptable to me? Because I think what the energy of this moment does is gives us a little opportunity for some sort of reorientation. Even if we don't necessarily know where we're going, we can reorient ourselves towards something that would certainly give us the capacity to include things that are more meaningful than we currently have access to, right? So those will be the middle 3 cards. And then we will close up with what I think is the second most important question that you can ask yourself in 2026. And that is simply, what is the next step? That's it. We don't have to have highfalutin plans. We don't even have to be, engaging with the idea of what we must be doing by even May 2027. It's kind of like, where can we shift and wriggle around? Because a half-degree turn here can lead to something considerably bigger by the time we're a year, 2 years, 3 years down the line, right? So I hope this is acceptable for you. This is what I have. Let's start out with, where is Aquarius right now, please? So we have the Page of Pentacles on its side. We have these 2 cards coming out, Hanged Man and the Justice card, Pisces and Libra respectively, and then 2 of Cups with, good lord, there's another 2 cards on the floor here. Let's have a little look. We've got the Hierophant reversed, and we've also got the 9 of Wands reversed. To say you are going through something big right now would possibly be a bit of an understatement, Aquarius. And, maybe this is because Pluto, which has been in your sign since, November 2024, stationed retrograde a few days ago and is now moving backwards. Pluto is a significant influence when it enters a sign. And I think the retrograde energy can be equally as significant, because it gives us an opportunity to go over what Pluto has covered so far, at least a few degrees of what Pluto has covered so far. And it seems like you are in the midst of something that is changing quite spectacularly. Why do I say that? Well, in the first instance, right, we've got the Hanged Man here. It is a card of a suspended state, but it's a suspended state that is voluntarily undertaken, right, where we put ourselves somewhere uncomfortable and change the way that we see things, change the way we're quite literally viewing things. Why? because it gives us a better idea of actually what's going on, and it allows us to see things that we did not see before. So that's the first thing, and to have it accompanying the Justice card is quite significant in and of itself as well, because the Justice card deals with things like karma. It deals with, which is a neutral force. I just want to make that really clear. Karma is a neutral force. It is simply the consequences of our actions. But also things like destiny and balance from a kind of natural law perspective, right? There's a lot of things changing about your worldview right now, but also your understanding of your part to play within it. And when we can combine that energy with a Page of Pentacles, which is sitting somewhat in a suspended state, and that's very much oriented around what we value, you know, the perceived value of what we do or how we show up, and also how other people are showing up and other things that we're engaged with, right? It's almost like that's been suspended while we are working out what we really think about all of these sorts of things. And then we've got the Eight of Pentacles at the bottom of the deck as well, right? Which can speak variously to not only what we do for work, but it can speak to our great work as well. It's those things that we, the way that we work on ourselves to try and improve what we are, particularly as it relates to any future destiny that we may be finding ourselves kind of currently engaging with, right? But the energies of consistency and dedication that the Eight of Pentacles shows up, it's all in the pursuit of mastery of self. And that is something that Pluto wants from you too. Pluto wants you to be strong in a very, very real way, and not in a way that is held up by false supports anywhere, right? So this questioning state that you are in here, as demonstrated by all of these cards, is emblematic, I think, of a period of great change. Now, are you going to have, you know, sudden breakthroughs and sudden insights? Not necessarily. You know, the energy of the Page of Pentacles, the energy even of the Hanged Man is quite slow. Eight of Pentacles, quite slow. I mean, we're slowly unpicking things, very Plutonian that, right? But it's all focused on your current paradigm. We have the Two of Cups in reverse, which, to my mind, the Two of Cups in the upright is about intimacy. It isn't necessarily about new relationships or even relationships that have existed for a long time. It is about the state of intimacy, shared goals, shared vision for the future, all that kind of thing. We're on a similar wavelength to people. When it shows up in the reverse, then, you know, the natural corollary of a breakdown of intimacy or a breakdown of what has been shared up until this point is the breakdown of a relationship. Obviously, it's going to work that way, right? Hierophant reversed. Interesting. I mean, some of you might be finding yourself getting divorced. I mean, sometimes it can be as literal as that, because the Hierophant can represent, you know, social institutions such as marriage, right? So what we've got here is possibly impending divorce for some of you, right? And if that is happening, I'm sorry, it's a difficult time, right? But the Hierophant also represents that which is rigid and very structured, and particularly as it pertains to the way that we interact with other people, or we don't, right? What is the level of intimacy that we have with other people? Is it meaningful, or is it something else that has been aping intimacy for the longest time and you've only just noticed it? Like I said, there are so many things that are in flux here, so many things that are changing around your values and what you value, and particularly, like I said, this little tweak that seems to be happening here in terms of what you want the future to hold for you. Like I said, it doesn't have to have a distinct end point exactly, but you could be looking around at your life right now and being like, I feel lonely within my relationship. I don't feel supported. I don't feel like my interactions with people have any kind of longevity associated with them at all, and that makes me sad. And what needs to change in order to bring more of what I actually want around, so that this is a regular and consistent part of my life? You know, wherever the Eight of Pentacles shows up, there is a need for increased effort on things, for sure. And it feels deeply related to me, to Pluto going into retrograde, particularly in terms of where your power is, or where your power has been taken away. Because this very last card here feels like a little bit of a gut punch as I'm looking at it. The Nine of Wands is a card that is, for me, intimately related to the idea of what we do and how, to some extent, how much responsibility we take for what we do, right? The nines represent the management of whatever element they represent, whatever sign, suit they represent. And the ones are very much related to experience, to action, all those sorts of things. But it's a card that's deeply related to boundaries. Not just the erection of boundaries, but the continued maintenance and movement where required of boundaries. So to have established relationships breaking down, and there being boundary issues that are coming up as part of the issue, there is a way of looking at this, Aquarius, to say that maybe you have accidentally transgressed somebody else's boundaries and now you're dealing with the consequences of that. Or it could be that there's a recognition that other people have been permitted to continually transgress your boundaries. Maybe to the extent that you realise that you haven't got any, at least not where they should be. In either situation, we've got something kind of difficult, trying to, well, I was going to say trying to bubble its way to the surface, but because Pluto's gone into retrograde, we're very much in the, not in the bubbling up to the surface, but kind of deep diving into where all of this has originated. Now, let me pull the clarifying deck out here. Let's get some clarifiers on this set of 3 cards here. What's this all about? So we've had one that's fallen out to the right as like a kind of secret card. We'll have a look at that in a second. Right, we've got the Moon, we've got the Tower, and we've got the 6 of Cups and the 5 of Cups at the bottom of the deck. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind at all that something that has been, at least for a while, functionally stable is breaking down. It feels to me like it's related to your interactions with other people. It's not so much things like a job loss or things like that. Although, that could have been the starting point, the catalyst for all of this. Well, we've got the 6 of Cups, which is representing the past, or perhaps soulmate relationships. Sometimes we see the 6 of Cups representing that. But a kind of, the thing that I think about this with the 6 of Cups quite a lot is that it's a card that represents nostalgia. But if you look into the etymology, what that card used to, what that energy, what that word used to mean, it was less about a kind of wistful, kind of sepia-toned view of the past, kind of a wistful need to go back to simpler times. And it was actually something altogether much more neurotic than that. It was an absolute refusal to move forwards because of a desire that was so strong it would make you feel almost nauseous about leaving something behind. Now, we've got the Moon fogging everything over the top. That's always great when that happens, right? And we've got the Tower here hitting a bit like a bolt from the blue, like a realization that there are so many things that have been wrong here. We may be not getting to the point where we can ascertain where these things originated, although, perhaps in childhood is one of the places, right? Particularly if we're repeating the same patterns over and over again. This requires work. This requires a bit of digging around in it to really truly understand the scope of what is now slowly starting to appear as not quite right. We've got the 5 of Cups at the bottom of the deck, which is a card of grief, it's a card of sorrow, sometimes it's a card of bitterness and resentment, but it's a card of stuck emotions. So just as these are stuck here, and these are stuck here, well, we've also got something which is, it feels like uncomfortably unsticking you. And in the midst of it all, you're trying to make sense of a world that now no longer makes sense in the way that it did just a short period of time ago. What do we have here? Queen of Swords, of course, right? There's the attempt to make sense of all of this. The Queen of Swords, for me, is that card, as all the Queens are, actually, that help you make sense of whatever suit they represent. So quite literally, in the case of the Queen of Swords, like, we're looking at all the information and we're going, what's real, what's true, and what fucking isn't? What have I been carrying around for the longest time that isn't true? And what has that promulgated as a result? When I talked about the Hanged Man speaking about a change of perspective, and particularly around perhaps even the notion of justice and fairness and rightness itself, it feels like everything's turned upside down, Aquarius, and maybe you saw it coming, maybe you didn't. You know, even with the presence of the Tower, it isn't necessarily true to say that this came like a bolt out of the blue, like it hit you sideways and, you know, your whole world's turned upside down. The fact that the moon is there, and the moon being that kind of distortion that gives you an idea of the landscape, but it gives you no fucking details about it. And also the fact that the moon can represent the subconscious, which only speaks the language of symbolism. And you're trying to unpack this into something that is not on the peg of symbolic, but actually, you know, relatable and understandable. It could be the Tower itself is the fact that you don't quite understand this to the extent that you would like to. It feels like you've been jettisoned straight into a long dark night of the soul, and you didn't. And in that way that happens when we hit a long dark night of the soul and we start going into it, we're like, what the fuck is this hellscape? I don't like this, I don't know this, I don't understand any of this, I don't recognise any of this, and yet, here it is. You know, in the, in the Fool's Journey, which is actually, you know, the path that the Fool takes through the entire major arcana before arriving at the Fool and at the World card, and hopefully kind of getting to a point where lessons have been learned and then he can move to the next level. The Hanged Man is quite often given to be the starting point of that underworld journey that I was just talking about, that long dark night of the soul. And the emergence point is the Sun, which is a card that represents Leo, which is your opposite sign. And so there is a sense here that you are going deeply into all the misunderstood and deep dark parts of you that you're not really familiar with, to get to the point where you can understand something from a different perspective. Now, in terms of that underworld journey that I'm talking about, the moon plays a part in it, the Tower plays a part in it, but we also hit death, and we hit temperance, and we hit the devil, and we hit the star, before we get to the point where understanding and processing has occurred, and we release that which must be gone, right, before we re-emerge back into the world. And it seems like you're hitting a few of them simultaneously, which would explain why the Eight of Pentacles is there, because there's some canny work that's laid out in front of you. So with that said, let's have a look at, you know, where the problem actually is. So we have the Queen of Pentacles. We also have the Six of Wands. What do we have here? The Fool. Right. Yeah. If you are struggling, Aquarius, I think it's really important that you understand that you are exactly where you are supposed to be. There is nothing about this that is punitive. In fact, what the universe is trying to do is get you to strip mine, deep mine your psyche, so that you can relinquish those things that have been holding you back. I mean, this is the purpose of all of this. I mean, the ultimate result of the underworld journey is the rebirth and the re-emergence into the light, right? But this Five of Wands at the bottom of the deck, it's a card that indicates conflict. So sometimes it can represent competition and stuff like that, but it's conflict and strife internally quite often, or with other people. It's Saturn in Leo, so it's another card of your opposite sign right there, and it's that hard work, right? Now, interestingly enough, the 5 and 6 of Wands are cards that I advocate reading for together, in so much as one for its truest fulfillment, actually needs to be related to the other. So if one doesn't show up, we can sort of imply that there is an issue around, a complete absence of the other. Now, both of these have shown up for you, but you'll notice that there's a very direct experience of the Five of Wands, the struggle, the strife, whether this isn't you internally fighting with yourself, or perhaps you fighting with somebody else, right? It could be an external conflict. But the issue of the problem is not that this won't ever end, because I think you know that it will, and there will be a point where you emerge in this and there will be something better. But the nature of what that actually even looks like at this point, it could be that part of the way in which you have considered yourself to be successful, or to, any of the things about you that you thought were great are now part of the things that are in review. What is your notion of success? I've talked before that there have been times in the past, like my whole fucking, pursuit of my legal career was for one objective and one objective alone, and that was to have a piece of paper to say that I was smart, right, and to allow my reputation to precede me on that basis. Why? Because I thought if I had that as a shield, then, people would just respect the shield, and I wouldn't have to work so fucking hard in the background to cover my weirdness and all those sorts of things, right? But ultimately it came down to a self-worth issue, and I needed external validation of my own self-worth, right? So it could well be that that's something that's kind of bubbling around here for you a little bit, because just as the Page of Pentacles has shown up sideways, so too has the Queen. And this is important because when it comes to working out where to put your energy, where to put your effort, without these two in the upright, understanding the value of what you are looking at, but then further understanding the value of investing in a particular way forward, or a particular whatever, and particularly as it relates to you as a human being, like, where am I supposed to be putting my fucking effort right now? I don't know. Maybe it is because your values are changing. Maybe whatever's gone on here has started to show you that a lot of the ways that you have done things up until this point actually haven't really given you the things that you needed, and then maybe they've taken you entirely down the wrong road with yourself, right? So that's important, but the Six of Wands is really, really important here too. And I think what really adds the icing onto the cake is this Fool card. Now, the Fool, sometimes some people say that it represents the energy of Uranus, and I can see the argument for it, but I don't really feel like it fits too much. But at the same time, we cannot ignore the fact that Uranus has just gone into Gemini and Pluto is in Aquarius, and these two incredibly powerful generational planets are speaking to each other through trine. Right, Uranus, I think, is still at about 0 degrees of Gemini, and Pluto's sitting at about 5 degrees, right? So they're within orb of influence of each other, and they're trining. And what does Uranus want from all of us? New ways to be free, right? The rupture, the breakthrough, the upheaval. Right? For me, I feel like the energy of the Tower actually fits Uranus a little more accurately than the Fool does, but I mean, that's just a personal preference, right? But the point is, you've got both of them on the fucking table, and where you've got an energy that is working on you pretty fucking hard right now to say, Aquarius, free yourself, it's going to have you challenging your paradigm and challenging your belief system, knocking it down so that it can be upgraded. And the knocking down is really uncomfortable. Why? Because it's everything that you know. Right? We're unpicking it to see what we missed along the way. Right? How much of what we know is actually simply inherited from the people that we were around when we were very young, right? As it goes with this, I mean, part of it might be the emotional model that you had to follow for what a relationship actually looks like. And maybe you're starting to see that there were always really big cracks in that, and that was never going to lead to something ultimately successful. Like I said, this Queen of Swords is doing some really heavy lifting with you right now, Aquarius, because she is frantically trying to put all of this information in the right place. because there's something really overwhelming and ultimately what feels disempowering about how difficult it is to get a handle on all of this right now. Now remember, Pluto deals with power. And the way that he deals with power, I speak as a Capricorn ascendant, so somebody who had Pluto going through her first house for 15, 16 years, is to kick away all the false supports. He wants you to connect with something that is real, that is not conditioned, that is a source of your power moving forwards. And when it happens, it feels like this. Maybe it doesn't even feel a little bit like we're falling, and it certainly feels like this. You know, these energies of rupture and chaos and all that kind of thing, I mean, the cracking rigidity that allows something real to emerge therefrom. The struggle is part of the process. Struggle is, I think, the indication that there's something really meaningful happening, actually. And whilst I think it's possibly a little early for you to think, okay, well, this is all for my highest good, you know, everything's just trying to free me right now, and I'll lean into that. I think it's too early in the process to meaningfully think that and align yourself with it. It's almost like we've got to surrender to the struggle. We've got to surrender to the chaos. We've got to surrender to the upheaval. And allow it to show us what we need to see without trying to understand it too readily. Because when we try and understand it too quickly, we have a habit of jumping to conclusions about things. And I mean, that's fine. Sometimes that gives you a little bit of something, but ultimately we'll end up unpicking that too. And it seems like it's better to just allow things to happen the way that they are and observe them neutrally. And let things fall down. And then deal with the wreckage once it's done. Like, you feel a little bit like you're tying yourself up in knots here, Aquarius. And it's completely understandable. And you have my sympathy, because I deeply empathise with this position. I know exactly what this feels like. And it's really destabilising. What I can say, although I expect this to fall on deaf ears, is that it's always worth it. That point when we emerge back out of the underworld, we engage with the world in a very, very different way. I do wonder if a lot of this is the precursor to the energy of that is flowing into Leo in a couple of months' time. It's almost like Pluto starting the work here, because the South Node will move into Leo. If you're an Aquarius ascendant, that's going to be your 7th house of other people. But you might not be an Aquarius ascendant. You might be, I don't know, 6th house Aquarius sun or something, in which case all that Leo energy is going to be going into your 12th house across the zodiacal wheel, right? But we've got the South Node moving into Leo. Jupiter will move into Leo. These are going to oppose you. They're going to oppose whatever you have in Aquarius. And I think Pluto's starting the work here. Because opposition's difficult. They're really, really difficult. Right, let's have a look at the next step, Aquarius, because I think that's the most important thing here from what we've got on the table. The next step, King of Pentacles in reverse, Death in reverse. Interesting. Got the Moon in reverse as well. I'm just checking, like, no, these cards are all the right way up. We've got the Knight of Wands. Yeah, I mean, there's something, again, if it wasn't profound enough as it is, like these extra cards here have really really leaning into the profundity of the moment, right? And the first part of this is like, don't be too quick to try and control the transformation that you are definitely in the grip of right now. This is not a just for now, just for this week, or even for this month, this season. It's not that. There's a longer term process going on here, and it really does not serve to rush it in any kind of way. You know, the King of Pentacles deals with the vision of what he wants to build, and then he controls every step thereafter, right? He retrogrades. He you know, retraces his steps. Can't think of the word that I'm looking for, right? So that where he wants to go meets where he is right now, and then he starts the work of you know, doing everything. No skip steps, no nothing, right? He controls every aspect of what happens hereafter so that he can arrive at the end result. And the really important thing that you need to take away from this is that your current level of consciousness cannot perceive what this transformation is going to look like when it is complete. Ergo, any attempt to control every step of what is happening is actually going to retard the onset of the transformation, and ultimately is an expression of probably what is trying to change within you, which is that rigidity around how you approach the world, right? What the Death card is doing ultimately in its transforming state is clearing out. It's making space for new things to come in. Your current level of consciousness can't predict what that is going to look like. And quite simply, the work of clearing out has only just started. Let's not rush this process, because the Death card knows what it's doing. But if you're trying to control everything, you are actively resisting that change. You're resisting the clear out in the way that it needs to happen. And the struggle is part of the clearing out. It's a huge part of that. We've got the moon in reverse. And again, don't try and predict what all of this means. You have to allow these things to show up, to reveal themselves in good time as and when you are ready for it. You know, the Two of Pentacles at the bottom of the deck is actually probably the most active expression of what you should be doing. I don't really like that word should, right? But what it would be advisable for you to be doing, which is simply keep yourself on a level, right? The Two of Pentacles is that balancing act that we do. Ostensibly because something is growing here, but it feels like there's a big contraction going on here, and that's unpleasant. We don't like that. But in that contracted state, you know, many things are jettisoned, and then, you know, expansion thereafter allows a lot of space for new things to come in. So don't try and rush any part of this process. Don't try and force any of the changes, because quite frankly, the universe knows better than you what it's leading you towards. You don't have a sense of this yet. Sounds like my Malinois just dug one of the dogs there. Anyway, sorry, I'm vaguely distracting. Your job, as far as possible, is to remain present with all of it. And what does that mean? It means try and avoid anything escapist. You know, whatever your escape mechanism may be, try not to reach for that immediately. Try and stay present, and try and be a very present witness to what is happening, what is changing, what's coming up, what's fading out, all these sorts of things. It really is the only thing that's required from you right now, and just keep yourself on a level. You know, there have been times in the past when things have been really difficult for me, where I just repeated to them like a mantra to myself, like, this too shall pass. This too shall pass. Why? Because everything does. And the biggest issue that we can sometimes have with the Five of Wands, if the Six of Wands isn't there, it just seems like struggle and strife for struggle and strife's sake, without the idea of any kind of resolution coming in at all, right? It's that Saturnian grind, like, will this ever fucking end? Well, yeah, of course it will. It's the only thing that's consistent about the universe, is that everything changes. Can you sit with this while it's happening? This is what this is talking about here. So, I'm going to leave it here. I'm going to go over to the extended now. If you'd like to join me over there, you're very welcome to do so. We're going to definitely dig around in this knot a little bit. Maybe, I don't know, I'm kind of hypothesizing here a little bit, but maybe some of the things that might come out are actually some of the things that have been floating to the surface, which you may or may not have noticed already. I don't know. We're just going to dig into it. We'll let the cards lead. So if you'd like to join me, you can do that on Selfie, you can do that on Circle. I'd be delighted to see you in either place. Yeah. It's a lot. It really is a lot. Let's not underplay the lotness that it is. At the same time, it's also necessary. And it's building something. It's building you. First, it's got to tear down what isn't really you. Chuck that out. And it'll get there when it gets there, you know. Alright. Know that I love you all very, very much. And I'll see you soon.